and the water is up in the willows at Oklahoma's Grand Lake of the Cherokees. So join us as nearly 200 of Mid-America's best bass fishermen from 9 states converge on Grand Lake for some red-hot summer bass fishing at the Grand Pro-Am. Temperature and humidity are both sky high, and angling's tough at many lakes. There may be no better fishing spot in America than Oklahoma's Grand Lake of the Cherokees. Right now, the water level is a foot above normal, which usually pulls Grand Lake bass into the willows. But the lake level has been falling steadily for the past week, and some of the bass are beginning to transition to their summer haunts in deeper water. As a result, this tournament could become a matter of determining where exactly the bass are.
Things are changing a little bit. The temperatures went up so much the past week. Fish, I think, is wanting to kind of move out, but the water's still in the willows, and there's going to be fish caught probably from 0 to 10, 12 feet in this tournament almost. It's pretty tough down here right now to get a 4 or 5 pound bite, and that's what a person needs to do. But I think I know a way to catch a couple of good ones, but I need a little wind, and that's going to be the whole story on this tournament, I believe. If we get some wind, I think there'll be some bigger stringers caught.
Oklahoman Jason Christie knows Grand Lake well, and he definitely believes the willows are not the place to be fishing if you want to win this tournament.
I expect around 28 pounds to win. I expect a lot of fish are going to be caught out of the willows shallow, but I expect whoever finds fish, you know, on the docks or on the ledgers or whatever, is going to be the guy who wins. I'm sure there'll be several money places out of the willows, but most guys that's fishing the willows, I don't think can catch that kind of fish. Not 2 days in a row. Somebody might catch 15 pounds one day, but not twice in a row.
The Grand Lake Pro-Am marks the final event for the Central Pro-Am tournament season and the quest for berths in the $150,000 Ranger Mercury Pro-Am Championship. It'll also determine the Mercury Outboard Ulrich Marine Center Angler of the Year in both divisions. After the first 5 tournaments, Troy Aiken stands atop the Pro Division standings with 471 points. Butch Still is in second place with 454, followed by Eric Holt, Terry Thomas, and Lynn Sykes. In the rest of the top 10, Tim Fleetwood leads the way in 6th place with 399 points. But Tim Taylor, Jimmy Davis, Marty Conrad, and Dave Barker are all hot on his trail. In the amateur division, the leader going into this final event is Alfred Chapman with 437 points. Ken Schulte and Mason Chambers are tied for second with 349, but they're in a virtual dead heat with Mike Finkbeiner and Tom Mason in 4th and 5th place respectively. In the rest of the top 10, David Calhoun holds down 6th place with 338 points, followed by Jeff Martin, Mike Smith, Scott Dennis, and Chris Beckman. The morning of day 1 dawns sunny and warm, and the Pro-Am anglers are eager to be on the water, even though they know that sunny and warm is certain to become hot and humid by the afternoon. Defending Grand Pro-Am title holder Gary Carrier is out with the first flight and begins working shallow flats near Terra Miranda with crankbaits. Carrier is finding some bass shallow today, but almost all of them are small. However, Carrier isn't concerned. He regards anything he catches early as a bonus because he's fished Grand Lake tournaments long enough to know that summertime tournaments on Grand are generally won or lost during the heat of the day, and that's what he's waiting for. When it comes to winning tournaments on Grand Lake, Toby Hartzell is as tough as they come. He's already won 2 Central Pro-Am events at Grand, and this morning he's off and running again. Hartzell is fishing a small Aikens jig around boathouses near Red 11 Port, where he won the previous fall. And so far, it looks like he's going to be in the running in this event as well. Another angler who knows Grand Lake well is the man they call Mr. Paycheck, Wayne Diffie. He's never won a Central Pro-Am event, but of the 7 Pro-Am events he's fished in the state of Oklahoma, he's finished in the money in 5 of them. This morning, he's working areas of willows in Echo Bay where he caught fish the week before. So far, it looks as if the bass have moved out, and now he must find where they've gone. Year in and year out, one angler who's always tough to beat on Grand Lake is Alan Head. He won the Grand Pro-Am in 1996, setting a Central Pro-Am tournament record along the way. Head located bass in the willows during practice, but today he hasn't been able to get them to bite. As a result, he's moved out to deeper water to see if he can find the bass around deep water brush piles where he normally catches them in July and August. So far, Head has only 2 keepers, but there's plenty of tournament day left. Troy Aikens has been the Central Pro-Am Angler of the Year twice in the past 3 years, and today he's trying to make it 3 of 4. He's the front runner going into this tournament, but so far this morning, he's not having a lot of success. Oh, he's catching bass all right, but none of them were big enough to keep. Still, Aikens is content to pitch jigs around shallow water structure until the big ones turn on. Bob Kaufman and amateur partner Mike Purse are in the Elk River arm of the lake, fishing jigs and crankbaits around boat docks and drop-offs. So far this morning, Purse has only 2 fish, but one of them is a dandy. Kaufman, on the other hand, has 4 keepers, and if he can keep this up, he's certain to be among the Day 1 leaders. Jason Christie has gone just about as far as you can go up the Elk River, and he's trying to coax bass out of tight, shallow water cover. He's not expecting to get many bites this way, but he's already won 1 Central Pro-Am tournament following this strategy, and you can bet he'll stick with it until he gets his limit. When the Pro-Am anglers return to Martin's Landing for the Day 1 weigh-in, Ken Schulte takes the early amateur division lead with 3 bass that total 6.35 pounds. But he's soon overtaken by Mason Chambers with 11.85. A short time later, Jerry Hickey moves to the forefront with a limit that weighs 12.15 pounds. Then it's Chris Beckman's turn.
3 more. 4 bass total. Nice sack of fish in the amateur division. 12.45 pounds. 12.45 pounds. There's your leader right now in the amateur division.
In the pro division, Rufus Harris establishes the early standard with a limit that weighs 12.05 pounds. Moments later, it's Jackie Davis.
How many bites did you have today? How many keeper fish did you have the opportunity to catch?
Just a couple more than the limit.
A couple more than the limit. Now, you guys fished out here last weekend as well. How much has the bite changed since last weekend?
Quite a bit because the water's drawn down, so it's maybe putting the fish where you can get to them.
Jackie Davis, our all-time leading money winner, looking to add to it here this weekend. 14.85 pounds. There's your leader right now in the pro division, Jackie Davis.
Bob Kaufman brings in a limit that weighs 12.8 pounds and moves into second place. Bob Harder also moves into contention with a limit weighing 12.7 pounds. Then Darrell Robertson comes in with this 5.8-pound bass, but it's his only keeper, and he can't challenge for the lead. Next is Gary Carrier.
$8,000 on the line, $1,000 Ranger Cup bonus award money. $15.70 pounds. Let's get a couple fish out of there, get a picture of this. Almost 16 pounds of bass. Put your hands together again, ladies and gentlemen, for Gary Carrier.
A short time later, Alan Head comes to the scales.
A few weeks back, I had a talk with Gary Carrier. Gary said that he was going to fish a buddy tournament with you, and I said, well, Alan won't show you no spots. And you said, well, you'd kind of like to have some of his spots. Guess who's leading the tournament?
Gary Carrier.
That's right, 15 pounds. My gosh, if these are swimmers. Kind of stretching it a little, aren't you, bud? Current leader right now, 15.70 pounds. 14.95 pounds.
Jeff Tipton has a solid limit that bumps the scales at 15 pounds even, and he takes over second place. Next is Dale Wilcox.
You got leaves in your hat. Where you been today?
We've been in the shade.
How many bass is in there total? Got a limit? 5 bass. Good sack of fish. 15.05 pounds. Second place? Probably second place right now. Put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for Dale Wilcox.
At the end of the first day, Gary Carrier sits atop the Lunker Lure Pro-Am scoreboard with 15.7 pounds. But he has only a narrow lead over Dale Wilcox, Jeff Tipton, Alan Head, and Jackie Davis, all of whom are less than a pound behind. In the rest of the top 10, Brian Snowden leads the way in 6th place with 13.75 pounds, followed by Bob Kaufman, Bob Harder, Toby Hartzell, Rufus Harris, and Tim Sonato. In the amateur division, Chris Beckman is in first place with 12.45 pounds, but he has a lead of less than half a pound over Jerry Hickey. Mason Chambers is close behind in third place, with Sutton Berry and David White completing the top 5. In the rest of the top 10, Lyle Vale is in sixth place with 6.95 pounds, followed by Thomas Johnston, Ray Osborne, Jeff Martin, and Rick Hennon. Stay tuned for exciting Day 2 action. We'll be right back. Time for Bass Fishing My Way. Helpful hints from some of Central Pro-Am's top competitors. In 1998, Eric Holt won his first Central Pro-Am title with a wire-to-wire victory at Grand Lake. And he did it fishing his way.
Well, in all the past tournaments I've fished here this time of year, one of the predominant patterns has been fishing docks. I've done well in the past on docks. I knew the docks were going to get a lot of pressure, so before I came over here, I started thinking, normally about all I fish with is a jig when I'm flipping. We're changing up to gitsets a lot. All of us are fishing gitsets, so the fish kind of get conditioned to those baits if they see them day in and day out. So I wanted to present them something a little different, something that most of the other guys weren't going to be doing, so I switched up to a finesse worm. Mostly I used a 3/16 ounce painted weight, and sometimes I switched to a quarter, but mostly a 3/16. If you see a finesse bait in the water and you experiment with colors and try to get the perfect color, and then you have a big silver weight sticking in front of it, it's just, you know, you're just going to catch more fish with the painted weight. The closer you can match the paint color on the weight to your bait, the better off you're going to be. I went with straight black because the water I was fishing in was pretty stained, but it seemed to make a big difference. Both of my amateurs switched over to the painted weight pretty early in the day because they weren't getting bit.
On the morning of Day 2, the Pro-Am anglers know for certain that the Grand Lake bass are in transition. With the water level at Grand continuing to fall a little bit each day, it's likely that even more bass have moved out of the willows into deeper water overnight. And there's no guarantee that the leaders from Day 1 will be able to repeat their first day success. Brian Snowden is out with the first flight and heads straight to the series of rock pile and ledges in front of Terra Miranda. Now, this spot definitely qualifies as a Grand Lake community hole, so Snowden is headed there first before it gets worked over by other competitors. He caught some fish in the area during practice with a Carolina rig lizard, and he goes with it this morning. But so far, it's no-go. Day 1 leader Gary Carrier follows the same ritual he did the previous morning, fishing crankbaits around shallow vegetation in the mid-lake area. Unlike Day 1, however, Carrier is getting absolutely no bites at all, so he begins pitching a tube bait around boat docks nearby. When Carrier gets no strikes there, he realizes things are going to be tough today. Dale Wilcox and amateur partner Scott Haldeman have run nearly an hour up the Grand River to the Twin Bridges area at the northern end of the lake. Here they have the water virtually to themselves, and that suits Wilcox just fine, because right now he has a hot hand going. At the Truman Pro-Am, Wilcox came in third, his highest Pro-Am finish ever. And today he started in second place, less than a pound out of the lead. So far this morning, he and Haldeman are getting a few strikes on salt craws pitched around the bases of the flooded bushes, but all the fish they're catching are small. Finally, Wilcox tries a buzzbait to see if the bass have moved out away from the bushes, but the results are about the same. Finally, Wilcox gets a strike from the fish he's been looking for, but the fight lasts only a few seconds before the monster bass pulls free. Now, Wilcox must keep looking for others like it that may still be in the bushes. Alan Head, on the other hand, is through with the bushes. He's now convinced that most of the quality bass in the mid-lake area have pulled out of the willows and moved to the first offshore cover they find. As a result, he's working brush piles and ledges in 10 to 12 feet of water, and he's going to stay there the rest of the day. So far, he has 3 keepers, and he's confident his pattern will produce a solid limit by the time the day is done. Bob Harder is also fishing in the mid-lake area, but he's fishing crankbaits and concentrating on the riprap and rock piles near Sailboat Bridge. Harder also has 3 keepers, which will keep him in the title chase in this tournament, but they'll also assure him of his first trip ever to the Pro-Am Championship. Bob Kaufman has returned to the spot in the Elk River that produced his day one limit, and he's catching bass again today, fishing soft plastic lures along drop-offs. By midday, he's managed to land 3 keepers, and if he can keep this up and catch a couple of bigger fish, he could be in the running to win his first Central Pro-Am title. When the Pro-Am anglers return to Martin's Landing for the final weigh-in, the amateur division is in turmoil because day one leader Chris Beckman has come in without a keeper. Cliff Richter comes in with this magnificent 6.1-pound bass, but he has no other keepers and can't take over the lead. Alfred Chapman comes in with only 1 bass, so he can't challenge for the lead, but his catch is good enough to earn him the Amateur Division Angler of the Year title. Then, Larry Simons comes to the scales.
Had 2 pounds yesterday. 13.15 pounds. 2-day total for Larry Simons, 15.15 pounds. There's your leader right now in the amateur division, Larry Simons, ladies and gentlemen.
In the pro division, one of the first to weigh in is Brian Snowden.
5 bass today, a little limit, like he said, 9.70 pounds. Add that to his 13.75 yesterday. Guess what? New leader, 23.45 pounds. Good job, Brian Snowden.
Bob Harder comes in with 3 solid bass that total nearly 10 pounds, but he falls just short of overtaking Snowden. Then, John Vick comes to the scales. Vick has a limit that weighs 13.2 pounds and moves into the lead with 24.75 pounds. Next is Eric Holt. He has a solid limit that clinches the Pro Division Angler of the Year title and puts him in position to take over the lead in this tournament.
5 today. He had 5 that weighed 10.80 yesterday. Currently leading the Pro Division right now. 24.75. They're going to weigh 14 pounds?
Yes, I think they will.
Well, we'll see about that. 14.25 pounds, 2-day total. 25.05 pounds. There's your leader right now in the Pro Division, Eric Holt.
A short time later, Alan Head comes to the scales.
Oh my. 5 bass, 19.95 pounds. Two-day total, catch him if you can, 34.90 pounds. Alan Head, ladies and gentlemen.
It's in the record books now. Alan Head wins his second Central Pro-Am title with a 2-day total of 34.9 pounds. Jackie Davis finishes second with 33.45 pounds, followed by Jason Christie, Gary Carrier, and Eric Holt. In the rest of the top 10, John Vick finishes sixth with 24.75 pounds, followed by Bob Kaufman, Dale Wilcox, Brian Snowden, and Jim Akins. In the amateur division, Larry Simons earns his first Pro-Am title with a 2-day total of 15.15 pounds. Steve Enochs comes in second with 12.9 pounds, barely edging out Lyle Vale, Chris Beckman, and David White. In the rest of the top 10, Jerry Hickey leads the way in 6th place with 12.15 pounds, followed by Mason Chambers, Thomas Johnston, Scott Clow, and Keith McCann. With the regular season completed, the top 40 in each division will now move on to Smithville Lake for the $150,000 Ranger Mercury Pro-Am Championship. For them and all the Central Pro-Am anglers, it was a very good year. Stay tuned for tournament winning tips from Alan Head. We'll be right back. Techniques you can use to catch more fish. Brought to you by Ranger Boats, where they still build them one at a time.
After the practice that I'd had, I felt like I could catch a few fish, but I didn't really feel like I could win. The fish in the last week, they've moved out of the willows and out of the bushes and started moving out on the deeper structure, and that's what really helped me. I had a patch of willows found that had some fish in them, and they left. In the last week, the water's been dropping about 2 or 3 inches a day, and I really think that the hotter weather that we had and the water dropping, that the fish were moving out better, and I'd found 2 flats or 2 little points out in front of those willows, and the fish had moved out about 10 or 12 foot in front of them. There was a little bit of scattered brush on it, a few chunk rock, and basically that's where I caught all my fish at. I'd caught fish on those areas for a year. They're good current spots. Whenever the water was rolling over them, you could drag a Carolina rig and catch fish off of them. But the current wasn't a factor on this. I think it was just because there were so many fish up there in those willows to begin with that that was the area that they picked to move out to first. And I didn't catch them on a Carolina rig. I caught them on a jig. A lot of times I like to hop a jig, and at this time I wasn't. I basically was just dragging it and every once in a while giving it a slide hop. But whenever if I did find some of the brush that was scattered on the little flat, I'd take the jig and just jig it a little bit in that brush, and that's normally when I'd get my strike.
Join us next week for more exciting bass tournament action on the Fishin' Magazine television series. We'll see you then. The Fishin' Magazine television series is brought to you by Ranger Boats, where they still build them one at a time so you can fish hard, run strong,